What is going on, everybody? 2Bob29 is back. We're coming to you live from the lounge server today. It is volume number 6 of the Round Table podcast. Today is definitely a smaller table than most. I guess too many people are too busy feuding, and that is okay. That is something that we will be talking about later on in the podcast today. It looks like it's got a lot of people's attention, but that isn't going to stop me from hosting the podcast today. Plenty to talk about, a good chunk of content the past couple of weeks. As you know, I am 2Bob29, the host of the podcast. I have a couple of people here with me. They'll go through and just kind of say their names so that you can get familiar with their voice as well. So first up, I have with me Mr. Haven't played a year yet, and it still shocks me how damn good he is at this game. It is Bunders 2024.
Thanks, Bob. Appreciate it. Yeah, I'm Bunders. I am in TNM with Bob, and becoming a regular on the podcast now. So I think this is 4 or 5 weeks running.
Yeah, I'm very appreciative for it. That's for sure. I really like the insight that Bunders can give from a different set of eyes, a different point of view. It's typically very appreciative for a vast majority of items that we've talked about on each and every one of those podcasts. So definitely a huge up to Bunders for almost always being available to help us record these podcasts. And making his debut on the podcast, I'm very happy to have him on board with us. Someone that's been with me in the new ministry for quite a long time, and I'm super stoked that he gets to join us today. It is the one, the only, the Big Show 827.
How you doing, everybody? I'm the Big Show, like Bob said. I've been with him in TNM for a couple of years now. I played this game pretty much almost from the start, I think. I got to go back and look, but it's got its goods and it's got its pros and its cons. So it's nice joining the table. Usually, I have outside things going on, so
it's appreciative that you get to hang out with us today, Big Show. And I know that you are, pretty much knee deep in Feud right now, so I'm not gonna force you to go too into detail there. Also, for those of you that continually are telling me that there's not enough engagement in the podcast recordings, what I'm going to actually be doing is feuding in the background. I am, however, going to make it as simple as possible, and I'm going to just be using one character so that I can continue to host the podcast without kind of being caught off guard by feuding here. So it's not going to be the most engaging gameplay, but you're going to see Bailey slamming every single thing under the sun. So that is for the wonderful YouTube listeners. But enough on that. Let's go into the podcast, volume number 6 here. Let's talk about our flash feuds that we had a couple of weeks ago. I know that we were in the middle of flash feud number 2 last time that we recorded this podcast. I'm also very interested to hear Big Show's take on the last flash feuds, especially as a big feud guy. And kind of interested in what drives him for flash feuds these days instead of just the typical feuds. We can definitely discuss the prize wall as well. For those of you that are watching this again on YouTube, you will probably remember my prize wall video that I went ahead and got 5 modern striker move damage belts, and pretty much all 5 of them were 50%. I got 140% and the rest were 50%. Didn't get any luck in getting 100% or so. Was not the best prize wall weekend for me personally. The CSS kind of basic for my outlook. Just kind of get the CSS done with and just moving forward to kind of hitting that max milestone on the battleground, picking up shards. No real big deal to me outside of the ordinary Flash Feud performances. But curious on your guys' thoughts now that the Flash Feud is officially over. what you guys thought about that weekend, the Sick and Sinister Flash feuds.
I'll go. So, for me, Flash Feud, my target is more 200 million than 300 million, generally because I don't have all of the CSS and it is difficult to make it 300 million without all the CSS. And this time I got to around about 228, so I was quite happy. I think I got a new skill plate. I can't remember exactly what one it was, so I do apologise.
Might have been like the Prey in the Night, the little 3MP, 3MP guy.
No, I already had a couple of those, I think, from the Rocky event, but yeah, the actual Flash feud went quite well. I was a bit disappointed with the prize war. I took the Pyro Princess plate. I didn't think I was that good, but actually I've been using it on Indy in this feud, and it makes a difference at least. So I shouldn't be too unhappy with that, I guess.
Yeah, that's a win. Anything that makes your top end stronger is definitely a win.
Yeah, definitely.
Talk to me, Big Show. What's your thoughts on the Flash feuds?
Nah, it seemed like a standard Flash feud. Nothing special about it.
Any reason to go above and beyond for it, you think?
No, not really. Nothing really stuck out that said, you got to do it, got to push it. It was just felt kind of blah for me. That being said, few rolls around, I usually try to go as much as I can for it.
Yep.
It's just an event that I like overall.
I can respect that. Did you get anything new out of the prize wall? Were the shards enough to get you a new character? You get a new skill plate? Anything like that?
Picked up nothing new.
Nothing new. Yeah. The prize wall seems to be getting kind of bland around this point a month. And it's kind of unfortunate because it's only week 3 that it already feels like it's getting kind of lackluster. I know that there were some of those guaranteed 100 straps for the monthly characters, but it really feels like those are falling short. Maybe it's just a me thing, but I don't know, man. Those prize walls really feel lacking these days compared to what we already have. I have these characters, but I am appreciative that they still have, shards of Sherry. They had shards of Muda up there for people that were close. They had shards of Muscle Man for people that were close to recruiting him. Very curious to a lot of the folks out there if they managed to get anything new out of the shard section from the prize wall. But that weekend, and it's not to kind of just harp on the negativity or anything like that, that weekend just fell really flat to me. It was either you hit Abby in the loot and, you were happy with that, even though it was the Mercy the Buzzard, essentially, for Feud, and Mercy the Buzzard for all of the top positions. It just didn't feel that important. I didn't really, feel like I was missing out on anything for not having Abby the Witch for the first Flash feud. It just felt eh. The other thing that I'm curious about in regards to that feud before we kind of just move on from it, did either of you guys feel the need to take up Alexa Bliss to 6-star gold? The top lane for feud number 2 was any Alexa Bliss at 6-star gold, and it gave you the top lane bonus. It could be any Bliss. Maybe you got lucky and already had one from like the 6-star gold loot. I didn't. I personally didn't have an Alexa. I didn't want to take her up for a 4-hour feud. I didn't see the need for a top lane bonus personally. And personally, as of this moment, I'm pretty happy that I didn't. I didn't see a necessity to doing so. Curious what you guys did.
Yeah, so I didn't have her already, and when I initially saw the requirements, I thought, well, I can take up Play or Pain, and then I thought for a 4-hour feud, that would be ridiculous. Waste of resources, and so I didn't bother.
Okay. Just wanted to make sure I wasn't crazy on that. Big Show, what about you?
No, had Abby been the leaderboard reward, I might have done it, but no.
Yeah, with it being Buzzard.
Yeah, with being Buzzard, it made no sense.
Gotcha. So, I mean, hopefully, and I think what Big Show just said there kind of speaks to the volume of what they could have gotten out of a lot of players. I myself was actually thinking about coming back out of, competitive retirement if that was an Abby leaderboard for Feud. But the fact that it was Buzzard, most of us either had Buzzard at that point in time or were so close to getting Buzzard that there was no need to, break ourselves, especially in terms of resources, to taking up an Alexa Bliss to 6-star gold of all things for a 4-hour bonus in Feud. It didn't seem like it was that much of a necessity. Versus if it was Abby, there's probably a good chance you could have gotten a lot more players out there to take up their characters to 6-star, 6-star silver, 6-star gold even for those lane bonuses. So just a little food for thought there for anyone that's listening into this from the Scopely team, which I don't think they are, but I'm hopeful that they do. Southside also chiming in with his comments. He got Sherry and Roxanne and almost Big Papa Pump rather. Not Big Papa Brian. I'm so used to that name even still after all these years. Miscalculation to bad choices. Well, first and foremost, Envy, congrats on Sherry and a huge congrats on Roxanne. Those are two of the absolute top trainers in the game. So huge time win for you there. Anything else on the Flash Feuds before we move on to the next contest, boys? All right.
No, not for me. No, I thought it was, like Big Show said, it was a fairly standard Flash Feud. I thought it seemed a little. I don't know if this was the same for everybody, but the fact it was Mercy the Buzzard's weekend, third weekend in, it seemed like a little bit late for his weekend. But maybe that was just me.
Yeah, no, I agree with you there. I think it was because of it kind of feels like what we talked about last podcast, that this month has been essentially about everything else that wasn't the Wyatt Six. It feels like this month was about, Rocky Balboa, about the Turtles, about pretty much everything that didn't have to do with the Wyatt Six. And I feel like the second half of the month is about the Wyatt Six. Almost like we had two mini MLCs kind of put into one long November 5 week. Maybe it's just me who thinks that, but I feel like that's been the experience.
No, I think they could have taken the Turtle and the Rocky event and made it a 1 week event, like an in between MLC type thing, instead of throwing everything in the kitchen sink at us in 1 month.
Yeah.
Yeah, 100% agree. Yeah, that it does feel like this MLC has really, really dragged on forever, just because those two events in the first 2 weeks were events in themselves, MLCs in themselves, but not MLCs.
So I guess that's a good point too, and it's not really a point that I had up for us to discuss, but does it feel like this MLC is just continually going on? And I guess the real reason that I ask that, the date that we're recording this right now is December 7th. This is, week 5, right, of the MLC. But doesn't it just kind of feel like this MLC is dragging on? And do you think that maybe it's because we're already into December, into the next month? Is that part of why it feels like it's dragging on so much?
Yes, for me, it just seems odd that when the monthly logging counter changes and you're still in the same MLC, that seems odd to me. And it might just be an OCD type thing from my point of view, but certainly the 5 week ones feel a lot longer than the 4-week MLCs, not just an extra week. Although it is only an extra week, it feels like those are significantly longer.
Yeah, it feels like
Yeah, and with the added events to it this month, it really feels like it's dragging on.
I was just gonna say, it just feels like it isn't. It feels like it's not coming to an end. The end here, right? Even I don't even want to just say this week, but almost the last 2 weeks feel like it's almost just being forced gameplay instead of enjoying kind of like what happens at the start of a new monthly. Like a lot of people at the start of the new month are looking forward to it. They're grinding heavy. They're putting a lot of time in the events. They're spending decent money. Like it seems more engaging compared to the ending of a monthly where it's like, I already have the 500,000 points. I already maxed out the MLC. I've done just about everything under the sun. I'm just here to pick up, whatever the new thing is, right? Whether it's the skill plate or the character or a couple of things, right? Like a couple of just things that are straggling along. And don't get me wrong, I can understand that like the last 2 weeks for sure, right? You have Uncle Howdy, you have the Black Friday event, you had this follow the Buzzard thing, you had Thanksgiving with Gooker, like you have this whole thing with Abby the Witch. Like there's definitely a lot that they're trying to get people engaged with, but it almost feels like it's just an add-on and not really part of the monthly because you've already done the monthly. Just feels weird to me.
Honestly, to me, it kind of feels like it's a 2 month MLC with the
Yeah,
amount of stuff and events and additional stuff they brought in outside of the Y86.
yeah, I can definitely see that. I get the same feel, honestly. It really does almost feel like a 2 month MLC that was split up into 2 weeks and 3 weeks. It's a very weird feeling, honestly.
I guess from a positive aspect, obviously, I'd always like to point out the positives as well as the negatives because you
Yeah.
can get down sometimes. A lot of people I've seen seem to be saying that they've recruited the 3K recruits in this instance, Mercy the Buzzard,
Oh, the
for the
Buzzard.
first time, or like for the first time in ages, or whatever. So that does seem to be a positive from it.
Absolutely, right? The longer that the month goes on, the more that there is a chance to obtain those things. Absolutely, for sure. Um, so, I mean, look, I'm hopeful I'm always hopeful that people can walk away a winner, especially when it comes to this game, right? Um, but yeah, and I mean, maybe it is just us, right? Maybe because we are all in TNM that a lot of us kind of get a consistent amount of things a little bit earlier than probably the masses. Maybe it just feels like a drag because of the environment that we're in compared to everybody else. Um,
Yeah, I definitely think that's a fair point. It is. Um, Having been in a lower down faction not so long ago, like I was consistently not getting the 3K recruit, but since I joined TNN sort of 3 months ago, I've got the 3K recruit every single month.
well, that's awesome news.
So it does make a difference, and it's fair that you point that out. But
Yeah, that's and for anyone that is listening to this on YouTube, right? That's a big reason of why I would like to get more people on the table, and to join us when we record these, so that we can get that different perspective. Because I don't want this to just be a yes crew, a yes party where everyone just kind of agrees with everything. And I think having that outside perspective of someone that's not in the same exact faction can really help shed a lot of light on these things. And that's a big reason too of why I try to get Envy on the podcast so often. He really helps us kind of see things from an outside lens, and I'm super appreciative of that. And speaking of Envy, I'm reading his chat over here. He was talking about getting the free character 6-star Bronze Day one from their gift, which is something that he did get very lucky on, and then ended up shard recruiting the other two in the next 2 weeks. So definitely an impressive week, or impressive month rather, for Envy. And yeah, that's also a good point too, that we will talk about here probably when we get to the Feud Salvation, which is maxing the Super Shard contest. because they added the Abbey shards. And I'll talk about Bunders' question to me earlier about are they adding the Uncle Howdy shards to it. We'll catch up on that in a few here. But outside of that, the Flash feuds, I don't think there's anything else for us to talk about there. But we can move on to the Follow the Buzzard week-long event. This was a very odd event for me. This was, just to refresh everybody's memories, a set of 4 freebie giveaways, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. They give us some 6-star gold tokens on Monday, a gear bag with 2 gears on Tuesday, Wednesday with an A-tier superstar bag, Thursday with a S-tier superstar bag, and the contest itself was essentially a big-time solo blitz grind. That was a very intriguing event, to say the least. You needed to have a character at 6-star gold to put them in the blitz lineup. The minimum was only 1, so you didn't need a 6-star gold in every class, but you did need a minimum of 1 of them. And there was a bunch of superstars that were CSS. So you did need to win with each class. You essentially needed to win with not every era, but a good chunk of eras outside of like modern and PG. And then there were some very concrete requirements like SmackDown, Raw, the Maya Via Legacy Link, WCW, Canadian. And then they had specific characters instead of like tag links. So any Hulk Hogan, any Roman Reigns, any The Rock, things like that. Those, if you didn't have them, could be made up by just doing more blitzes, which cost regular blitz tickets instead of their fancy blitz tickets that you have to either pay for or turn in regular blitz tickets for. But there was a significantly large skill plate prize wall that was around this time. A lot of good stuff on it. Tama Chess, Piper Plate, Tiffy Time, a Finery Plate, Shades of Reigns, the Nearing End Plate. A lot of stuff on there, including, which is something that I probably wanted to get, but I didn't chase, which was the Chelsea's Entitlement. I didn't feel that was worth chasing the absolute top of the top to go for it with how many, hundreds of thousands of blitz tickets that was going to cost me. But I'm curious, did either of you chase anything from this skill plate wall? What did you think about the giveaways? What's your thoughts on this whole Follow the Buzzard thing?
So I actually really like the event. So I think when I came into the voice chat, the very first question that was asked of me was, "Oh, this won't be a very good event for you because being a newer player, I might not have so many at 6-star gold." But actually, I had nearly everything. So I was quite fortunate in that respect. And yeah, I like the fact that they had so many skill plates available on the prize wall. I thought the giveaways were just giveaways, that they weren't ever going to be great prizes, but they were giving us to them for free, and free is free, right? So you can't really argue with that.
Especially in this game.
Yeah, exactly. Take what you can get with that sort of thing. So yeah, I was pleased with the prize wall. I thought it was one of the most imaginative prize walls I've had in a fair while. I think prize walls have been a bit of a letdown on for the most part, but this one I was pleasantly surprised by. Very early on, I targeted either the nearing end plate for my Fuzzy Aussie or the Hulkamaniac plate for my Muscle Man Bray, because I didn't have either, and both were at 5 tokens, which I knew I could 100% get. And I had to choose between the two, and in the end, I did get the 5 that I needed, and I chose the Hulkamaniac plate because I thought I used Muscle Man more at this point, and he was CSS for the boss coming up, and I just thought maybe that was the better shout at this point for my roster.
You happy with the choice?
Yeah, really happy. Muscle Man was great in boss, and He's been CSS a lot throughout the month. He's also he was constantly the defense on the Rowan
Oh, the showdowns.
showdown.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'd often go to my showdown 8 hours after I'd used my energy and not have been attacked because people would attack the other Bray Wyatts because why
Yeah.
fight Muscle Man if you don't have to?
Yeah, absolutely. No point in signing up to fight a 6 gold muscle man when you could fight a 5-star gold fiend or a 5 silver new face of fear, right? So,
Absolutely. Yeah.
yeah.
So yeah, I was really pleased with the thing, and it does make a big difference to Bray. It probably doesn't help anybody else in the game, but actually, that isn't a bad thing either because you can stick it on his strap and know stays there forever, and you haven't got to worry about it too much. You're not moving it around a lot. So
Very fair.
yeah, all round, I thought it was a good event. I think they should do more events like that. I like the fact that it was any Rock, any Hogan, any WCW, and not specific CSS.
Yeah.
I think those are much better for the community as a whole.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to us discussing more about those CSS requirements, kind of evolving, moving forward. Big Show, talk to me. Your thoughts on the Follow the Buzzard contest?
To piggyback off of Bunders, it was a really decent event. Either you had the superstars or you didn't. If you didn't, you just grinded regular blitz tickets, which they pay out in leader or milestones. So a lot of people have a abundance of them.
Mm-hmm.
Plethora, Big Show.
Oh my
I'm sorry, yeah,
god.
to use Bob's word, a plethora.
Oh my god. I thought I'd get away with it. There's only a couple of us on the table today, but no, I gotta eat it.
The bags were decent. I saw a couple people got some stuff out of them throughout the different servers and stuff in the community, which was nice. But again, they're free, so you really can't expect much.
Yeah.
I think I ended up taking my target was the Tiffy plate
Okay.
when I first saw it, and I ended up taking Hogan, Taker, Striker, Brett, and I think one more to 6 gold to go after it, and unfortunately fell short.
You didn't get top 250.
No, I was like I think I finished 268.
Oh man, right
Oh,
outside.
Yeah, and it was what it was 200,000 blitz tickets I think I went through.
I'm sure. Yeah, it has to be at least close to that.
But I settled on a second Jade plate, so I mean overall I didn't lose anything.
No, Wheel of Cargo is definitely a nice plate for those that don't have one, or even getting a couple of them isn't bad. I know there was a couple people in our faction who, until that event started, didn't have a nearing end plate, and they were determined to go and get one. And I think within 30 or 45 minutes had done all the CSS and were like, you know what, I'm not chasing leaderboards. I came and got what I wanted, and they were done with the event in about an hour. And that was impressive to me. To see someone get their 5 and just be like, done, skill plate bought, I'm done with this, and just moving on to the next one.
I think that's a nice option, though, Bob. Like
Yeah.
for people to be able to say, from a quality of life point of view, for
Yep.
people to be able to say, "This is my target. I can get there in an hour, and I will, and that's what I'm going to take," sort of thing.
Right, and being content with it, right? Yeah. So
Yeah.
I definitely got to give them credit for that for sure. Myself, 6-star gold tokens are gold tokens, right? I think I got some nonsense on the A and S tier superstar bags. I don't even think I got a fuse up, but shards are shards. They're all useful, especially in today's day and age where we're taking a lot of people up to bronze and nowadays mainly gold for their new trainer and coach abilities. So even if you get dupes, shards are definitely shards. They're very helpful when you're trying to level people up. I did manage to get something new out of my gear bag, though. Finally, after all these years, I managed to get red pants for Junkyard Dog. So, was thrilled with that. Bunders, I know you haven't played long enough to know about the story of red pants and Junkyard Dog. just an absolute freak show of a gear for 300% on such a horrible character. People used to literally just use purple MP on this guy so they can throw out random gems with Junkyard Dog and this gear. And if it hit, boy, did it hit. But when it didn't, which was like 90% of the time, it just was horrible. It's just become almost like a meme in Champions at this point to talk about Junkyard Dog and the red pants, right? So, but yeah, I mean that was that. I ended up caving, doing some extra blitzes, so that I could get the 5 prize wall medallions, whatever those were called. And I think I ended up just taking another Unbreakable Crown because it was a 5-piece and I only had one of them at that point in time. And I like the idea of using the Unbreakable Crown because it's a good enough plate to me that I felt like I wanted to get more than one of them. Something that generates that many gems has some pretty solid value to it. So very impressed with the event overall compared to what I thought it was going to be. And before we wrap up on that event, the other thing that was brought to life with this event, there were the 100% gem damage straps, but there's also the 100% gem defense straps. These straps were available for 1 billion coins. So you got to start with 1 billion coins for a 100% gem damage, 1 billion coins for a 100% gem defense, and then there was a 4-pack that you could get 4 times, so 1 strap of each gem damage and gem defense for 1 billion coins. I myself definitely fell into the trap hole and spent all 6 billion coins chasing all of these defense straps because, as plenty of you out there know, I like defense. And I got pretty bad straps. So just curious, did you guys go for these hundo damage and hundo defense straps, or was it just me that fell into the trap?
No, is the short answer. I did not, and I probably would have if I had your sort of resources, Bob. But my 800 million coins at that point just didn't cut it. So even if I'd got to 1 billion, I wouldn't have spent them all on one strap.
Painful. Big Show, please make sure that it's not just me.
No, I fell into the trap.
All right.
And really wish I didn't after I saw what I got for the defensive straps. And even wasn't it 130s?
No, that one was just the 100 and 100. The web portal event was the 130s.
Okay, yeah, no, I'm just looking up the defensive straps now. I got New Gen Acro, Attitude, Powerhouse, and then I think I got like a Striker PG and something else where it's just like, yeah, I should have saved the 6 billion coins.
Yeah.
Although that New Gen Acro might come in handy.
The New Gen Acro isn't horrible. You can't even talk, especially for us who has, Leonardo. It might not be so horrible for someone like Acro Snoop who has a 1 MP move. It's not going to be the greatest for Tatanka, I don't think. But yeah, it's a toughie. I think my favorite one, and this is speaking volumes, I think my favorite one that I got was a PG Showboat, which for most of you out there are probably wondering, why the hell would I care about a PG Showboat? I definitely make up some weird builds, but the Viper's back, baby. That's all I'm going to say. So we'll see how that goes. Maybe I could even use him in Feud. It'd be kind of funny to bring out a 4-star Bronze Viper Randy Orton to feud with enough armor if I find someone who doesn't have gem damage. So we'll see. But was it worth 6 billion coins?
Absolutely not.
Not really. So yeah, that was definitely an interesting event, though. Very very odd to me, how it just kind of showed up out of nowhere. To Bunders' point, right? It was good that someone could at 3 p.m. show up and be done within an hour, and it was also good for me that people could grind out the contest if they really wanted to push for leaderboards and get a more expensive skill plate. For me, it just wasn't worth the time. It wasn't worth the amount of resources of Blitz tickets that it was going to cost. So it just wasn't worth the effort that was going to go forth. But power to everybody who did finish top 250 or higher and got some extra skill plates out of that. I'm sure that they're going to very good use. Outside of that, I don't think that we have anything else in regards to the follow the Buzzard week-long, the giveaways, the gold blitz, all that stuff, unless either of you guys have anything to say. But we can move on to the We're Thankful event. That is the Thursday event. The Gooker returns to WWE Champions. The turkey is back, everybody. And not only was he back, he got an upgrade to his coachability. From 40% to 50%, from 50% to 75%. They gave a chance to get his gears in the loot, in the golden egg, or whatever the hell that thing was called. There was maybe about 100 rabbit shards, give or take, which, whatever, at this point in the contest, right? We already have all of those, rabbit shards locked and loaded. The faction event essentially paid out some medallions for factions that maxed the contest, and then the top 5 leaderboard factions, I think, or top 3 ended up getting another medallion, and first place got 2 medallions. And that wall was made up of, Bam Bam, Motu Becky, Rocker, Acro Bianca, Logan Paul, Pat Patterson, Farouk, Shayna, and Thrasher for 3, 2, and 1 medallions, respectively. So, an interesting event, to say the least. There was also a showdown that went along with it, with a showboat defense. Just curious what everybody thought about this faction contest. There was also a faction talent up. I think that was 700 million points to max out, so it was about 7 million per person, which was mainly just, if you had Gooker, taking up Gooker, and if you didn't, kind of just using TP, which was very weird. Instead of just coins. The talent up, I don't know, was just odd to me. It was a lot of TP spend for big points. Coins were very little points. There was something about it was like fusing up 3 stars and 4 stars, or leveling up 5 stars and 6 stars. It was a real weird smorgasbord of points that you could get. But curious what y'all thought of the event. Did you get Gooker if you didn't have Gooker? And I think probably the number one thing that I want to know, if you got him, or even if you didn't but you wanted to get him, are you now incentivized to taking him all the way to 6-star gold for that new coach?
Okay, so positive for the event was that I do like that they're giving older characters new, improved coaching abilities to incentivize taking those up and making them relevant again. But unfortunately for me, that was the only positive. I didn't like the event. I thought that the faction talent up was too much for what you got out of it, for the normal person. And I thought that um, the tour where you required Guka to be able to do it, I hate that. You know, I don't mind them having it as extra rewards for a CSS, but when you cannot play a tour because you haven't got a character, that's not right. You know, this is a game that they should make available to everybody, and so everybody should at least be able to do a tour. Fair enough, the people that have got the CSS get the extra rewards, that's great. But not being able to do it, I don't think is right. So I didn't like the event at all. And I know I don't have Guka, and no, I didn't get Guka.
So it's because not having Gooker locked you out of the tour. Is that the only reason you didn't like the event as a whole, or were there other
No,
things?
no, I didn't like the faction talent up. I thought, like I say, that 700 million across the board, or 1% of 7 million for each player. That's still a lot of resources to use, and for what 97% of factions would have got out of that, it just wasn't worth it in any way, shape, or form. I mean, we were fortunate; we got third place, so we got 2 tokens, and I ended up getting a 6-star silver Pat Patterson to add to my roster. But actually, for people not in TNM, people not in a top 10 faction, they got nothing for spending a whole lot. Do you know what I mean? So, all round, I thought the event was poorly planned, and maybe just a little bit of we need to do something before Black Friday, so this is what we'll do. And I didn't like it, Bob. That's my honest opinion.
Kind of like a filler event type of thing.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Gotcha. Big Show, talk to me. Thoughts?
Yeah, like Thunder said, it was kind of like a filler event. With somebody like Gooker and as rare as he's been since his release, it's not fair to the masses that they get locked out of a tour because they don't have them. I know in our group, our faction, quite a few picked them up this time, which is nice. Some even pulled the gears out of those little eggs or whatever they were.
Yep.
The talent up, is what it is. I had Gooker, so I took him straight to 6-star gold, and have used him quite a bit this weekend already. And that new coaching ability is huge.
So you think it's enough to take him all the way to 6 gold, and I think it's what, like 5 stars full?
5 full stars, yeah.
Did you have to star fill him to get him there, or did you already have him at 5 full?
No, I had to star fill him.
Gotcha. Yeah, I think I'm gonna, to kind of piggyback off that point, I think I'm gonna also end up star filling him when there's a faction event for like star fills on 6 stars. I know that so the talent up, honestly, I think was a huge pain point for a lot of folks, because we had some players who went above and beyond on leveling up and talenting up and working up 6-star characters that they already had, and the only things that they got on 6 stars really were just investing coins. They didn't get any points for star fills. They didn't get any points for evolves. It was just levels. It was literally just levels on coins or TP, which, some of those characters were already maxed out on TP. And I know there was a good chunk of players that wasted, honestly, a lot of resources and didn't get any kickback for the Talent Up event. I really think that whole 3-star, 4-star thing versus 5-star, 6-star thing really threw a wrench in a lot of players' plans to working up these characters. It was very, very odd to me. I know that the talent up definitely wasn't the easiest for a lot of folks either. And I think Bunder's kind of hit the nail on the head with the amount of talent that people were going to need to invest for the rewards that people were going to get was not worth it.
Absolutely not. I mean, that prize wall for the majority of the community was a waste.
Yeah, don't get me wrong, right? If you're in a faction at this point and don't have someone like Logan Paul or Pat Patterson, that definitely is a win. But the likelihood that you're in a faction without Logan Paul or Pat Patterson that also has enough talent to compete with the absolute top end, top 3, top 5 factions, I just don't think that exists. The amount of talent that was required to push those numbers to try and get those characters for the recruit of a trainer or a coach, essentially at this point in time, that just didn't exist. Motu Becky was definitely there as kind of like the pot of gold at the end of the rainbow for essentially some folks, where it's like, that's a rare character that I don't have, so I'm gonna go ahead and invest for it. And that's what a lot of like the tippy top end wanted to do. But if you really want Motu Becky that bad, she's available on the club store for 200k points. She's not really that great these days, and it's more of just a collector's piece. But as a collector's piece, you don't really feel the need as a 100-person faction to commit to so much talent. It's just not. It's not necessary. It the amount that's required, honestly, it's just not beneficial. And
No.
the only thing that was, again, outside of the leaderboard prizes, which is essentially what that was, were the extra medallions. The only thing that you're getting out of the entirety of the contest were these Gooker eggs. It wasn't like, you're getting hundreds of millions of coins back, or TP back, or tokens back, or shard bags, or any of this type of stuff in resources back. You're not getting any of that stuff. You're literally getting 25 shards of characters that you most likely already own, like Mae Young, or Tatanka, or Technician Scott Steiner, or Stunning Steve. Like, that's what was in those eggs. The only thing, like Big Show said too, is like, maybe you got lucky and ended up getting like a Gooker gear out of the egg. And that would even require you to have Gooker. And no offense to anyone that likes using him, Gooker's really not that strong of a fighter. He's an amazing coach, but he's not that great of a fighter. So it was a really odd event altogether. I don't like the idea that there was a tour lock behind him. I could definitely support that idea. And especially, again, with him not being a great fighter, even using him at, 6-star plus 6-star gold, it wasn't an easy tour. Like, he really is not a good fighter. He just isn't. So it was a really weird event, honestly, altogether. I think for a lot of the players towards the top end, they ended up just getting fuse ups with their medallions. They didn't really recruit anybody new. And 6-star silver is nice and all, but it's not enough to justify breaking the talent up bank. It just wasn't. The last thing I'll say is, I took up Gooker to 6 gold. I'm waiting to fuse up that 5th and final star on him. I'm not taking him 6-star full. I will, definitely get some good usage out of his new coach ability. He is the strongest coach for any move damage, whether it's, just move damage or even finisher damage included. The fact that it's all of them is very good. So I definitely can see some value for him there. He's great on, Bailey and Rowan from recent months for striker move damage characters. He's great on move damage characters altogether. They don't just have to be strikers. So I think the upgrade to him was a solid upgrade. I don't like how rare they're still keeping him after all these years. I'm not saying that it has to be Santa Hogan where they give him out for free, but I think it needs to be something where they give him out more readily.
Or make his shards more available.
Yeah,
For
something.
larger quantities. I mean, he's what, 4 years old now?
I think so, either 4 or 5 years, man. This is it, and I get it, right? Like, Turkey, Thanksgiving. I get the idea, right? Like, it's a funny haha thing where it's the only time they bring them back, just like zombies are really only brought back during October or spring outbreak. But man, if that's when you're going to bring them back, you got to bring them back and make them available for people that want them. Like that's it's really stinky when people want him and can't get him. That's what I don't like. That
Yeah.
I think is what I don't like more than anything else. If there really was a dedicated tour to him, like there was, and it was blocked off, which is annoying as is, if you want him, you should be able to get him. That's the thing. And I'm not saying it should be a free thing where you log in and click a claim button like they do for Santa Hogan at 3-star bronze or 3-star silver every time that December comes around. I'm not saying that at all. But if you're someone who wants to dedicate to the game, and there's a lot of spenders in this game, if you really, really want the turkey, you should be able to have a way to guarantee the turkey. Whether it's a solo prize wall that you can get medallions for them, whether like Big Show's saying that you get guaranteed shards. If every mega was a guarantee of 250 shards at the bare minimum, right? Like you gotta give something. People need to be able to get the turkey to have a reason to go, ooh, there's a trainer upgrade or a coach upgrade. Now I want to take them up. It just feels like there's too many people left out on this one. So
there is a really easy way as well, Bob. They put him in the club store.
Yeah, they could do the club store too.
Yeah, but I don't think they will. I think they're going to treat them like zombies, where you'll never see them in there.
Yeah.
No, I agree.
That gives them the incentive to do the Turkey Day contest every year.
Yep. It's tough. Hysterically enough, out of all the stuff that we talked about with this event, I don't think anyone really gave a single damn about the showdown event that was attached to it. That showdown event didn't mean shit to anybody, honestly, to put it kindly. It just seemed like that was there. Even more, like we said about it as a filler, that felt like a filler within a filler contest. But yeah, I mean,
I forgot about it, to be genuinely honest.
Yeah. Yeah, it was not that impressive. That is for sure. Well, anything else on the Turkey event, the We're Thankful event? I am reading the chat here. Zoro took his Gooker from 4 bronze to 6 silver. Envy did not get Gooker, but he would take him up because Trickster does not hurt him too bad on tokens other than the purple TP. We also have AJ chiming in that she took Gooker 6 gold and had to fill stars instead of dumping in more resources. So definitely a lot of talks about the turkey for this event, and rightfully so. The talent up for sure was a tough one for 7 million points for people that didn't have Gooker. So anything else on this We're Thankful event? Because boy, they really didn't show it.
That's a good way to put it.
Yeah, no, I think we said plenty.
All right. Well, let's move on to probably either the biggest item on the podcast list or the second biggest item. The Black Friday Funhouse event. That's right, ladies and gentlemen, boys and gals, wonderful people from across the lounge. Black Friday is upon us, especially right after Thanksgiving. Lots to go around with that contest. The brand new Uncle Howdy hits the game. Bo Dallas makes his way into WWE Champions. The drip plate finally makes its return. And just after we got these 100% gem damage straps and 130% gem damage straps from the Portal event, almost immediately after draining us of all of our resources, the game comes out with 150% gem damage straps. The return of the 100% defense straps also making their spotlight. Lots to go around when it comes to the Black Friday spend event. There was also the puppet prize walls themselves, which had guaranteed prizes depending on how far you spent in the Black Friday contest. There was 1 skill plate, 2 gears, and 3 6-star bronze posters per puppet tier. There was a lot going around with this contest. I'm sure many of you probably watched my own prize wall video with all of the straps that I ended up chasing down. We'll get into all that good stuff later, but I'm very interested in hearing from my guests today. What did they think of the Black Friday event? I'm not going to ask for any specific amounts, obviously, because we're all degenerates when it comes to Black Friday. But did you get anything that you felt was worthwhile? Did you enjoy? Did you hate? Did you not really care about the Black Friday event?
I hated how much I enjoyed the Black Friday event and how much of a degenerate I became that one day. I'll say that much. It was a decent event. If you're a spender, it was worth it. I mean, you had a shot at Howdy. You had something on each of the 4 puppet prize walls to get if you didn't have it already. I mean, overall, I think it was a pretty decent event for what it was for a spend event.
Yeah, I echo that as well. I actually didn't mind it as an event. It was always going to be a spend event. As much as I'm not a fan of like 100% spend events, like no grindable factor whatsoever. It wasn't too bad, and the rewards were pretty decent all round. If you were prepared to spend a bit, I think the fact that Howdy was obtainable as what it actually was, I think surprised a lot of people. I don't think people thought that it was going to be that cheap. I put cheap in inverted commas there, but yeah.
Yeah, I didn't think he was going to be that
obtainable.
Yeah, obtainable or easy to get, so to speak. I really figured he was going to be gated hard.
Yeah, I would have been more. It wouldn't have shocked me if it had been the other way around with the drip plate and Howdy. So Howdy costing what the drip plate cost, and the drip plate being what Howdy cost in effect. Because as much as the drip plate is all hallowed and hardly anyone's got one, and it is that, it might have been a game breaker 2 years ago, but actually now it isn't. It maybe improves 2 or 3 posters from being okay to like turn oneers,
Right.
but other than that, it doesn't. And a 7 multi now isn't major, is it? You know, we're getting 25 multis on certain characters and stuff like that. So, yeah, the drip isn't as worthwhile. It definitely isn't worth what $1,500 or whatever it costs this event to get.
It was chunky.
Yeah, I don't think it was worthwhile going at that. I mean, for those that did, fair play, but being able to get Howdy for half that or less than half that was much nicer, in my opinion. And I mean, you look at Howdy, he's an absolute essential. He'll get used in the game as a trainer forever. Like that training ability is ridiculous. Possibly the number 1 trainer in the game now.
Yeah, so I definitely want to first start off by saying I agree with the both of you. And I know that this is, as we talk about this event, this was not a cheap event. This is not a for everybody event. I completely respect that there are non-spenders out there in this game. This was definitely a spend event. We like Bunder said, we always knew this was going to be a spend event. I think that the price tag that was put on Howdy was a very welcome amount compared to what previous Black Friday events have been. Still to this day, I am scarred by Brock Friday when Technician Brock Lesnar first came out. And he was the end-all be-all for technicians, for submissions, for the game. Brock Friday was a disgusting amount of money. It literally, this, pales in comparison to how much Brock was when he first came out. Almost, 3 to 4 times the amount of money this event was for Brock when he first came out. So it's definitely, again, right, like, it's a lot of money, but you get a lot of stuff out of it. And I think that's been the running theme for this entire contest. What Big Show was saying, what Bunders was saying earlier, the Turtles event, the Rocky event, those events in the beginning that felt like they were their own MLC, they were big spend events. They really were. You definitely got some stuff out of them, for sure, but it was still big spend. And that's really what it's starting to feel like, that there's a lot of big spending involved, but you feel like you're getting a lot of stuff out of it compared to what some people will spend on a regular basis and not get so much out of. And so I think that's where there's a difference. I'm not suggesting that that's a great thing because of how hefty the spending is, for sure, but it definitely was very welcome this Black Friday compared to most others. So it just to kind of, level the playing field, kind of lay it out a little bit in that regard before going into all the details and whatnot. Howdy was definitely more obtainable than a lot of other Black Friday superstars, and not just on the price tag, but, and I think Sensei just mentioned this in the live chat, they actually had shards of him, and he was actually available in the loot. It wasn't like you need to hit a certain milestone on spend $1,000, spend $1,500, spend $2,000, and you get the flat amount of shards that will total up to recruiting the character. There were actually chances of getting him in the loot. There were actually chances of getting shards for him in the loot. So the obtainability was definitely vastly different than what previous Black Friday superstars were at. The thing that I think they completely missed the mark on was the drip plate. I'm happy they brought it back. I think that a lot of people are happy they brought it back. Some people managed to hit some on loot. Some people definitely went above and beyond to max the event to guarantee themselves one. Also, the max of the contest guaranteed you, the top tier Abby, the puppet, whatever prize wall thing. And that in its own right had, Maxine gear, which is not that, necessary. A Tiffy time plate, which is good, but not that necessary. The Invisible Cena gear, which, to be fair, Invis Cena isn't the greatest in the game. So the gear doesn't really help him become like tippy top tier. He's not crushing 100 million damage turn one, in 10 seconds. It's not a thing. It did, however, have Fatu, who was last Black Friday event's character, which was very expensive at the time to get. It includes Great Muda, who is arguably still a top tier acrobat to today. And mainly it includes OTC. And for those of you out there that have played our game, you know how expensive OTC has been. So the idea of, if I max this event, I get Howdy, I get a drip plate, I get OTC, I'm getting all these things instead of it just being chasing one item. And so like last year it was, chasing Fatu. Years before it was just chasing Tech Brock. This year it's like, okay, I'm not only chasing Uncle Howdy as the Black Friday guy, but I'm also chasing this drip plate. I'm also chasing OTC. It becomes a package deal, so to speak, of the things that you're chasing instead of it just being one item. I will say, and I'm not going to go into a vast amount of details, but I definitely, I will openly admit I did about over 200 loot pulls on the Black Friday event, and I did not hit a drip plate out of the loot. So that was definitely a feels bad for myself. I know people that hit multiple drip plates on a singular mega. I know people that hit drip plates on a 7 pull. I know people that hit multiple drip plates in the loot as well as maxed out the contest. So within, a 24-hour to 48-hour span, give or take, on that event being live, someone that is brand new to the game or, has just started recently playing has as many drip plates as I have since I've started playing, and how expensive they were once, way back when. But Bunders is very spot on. That drip plate is nice, but it does not make the majority of characters broken these days. It's not something that, oh, I have a drip plate, now I can defeat the entire world. Like, a drip plate helps a lot of those free characters become very strong, right? Helps Dakota, helps out Ludwig, it helps out a few people into becoming competitively viable, but it's really not as, OP as it once was. So I'm happy to see that they're getting it back into the fold. I am not happy to see the price tag that they put on it. It is absolutely wild. Um, we can,
Yeah, it's still not worth that price tag.
no, I was gonna say we can talk about what we all got from the event if y'all want to. If you don't, I will lead it is fine too. But it's completely up to you guys if you want to talk about what you got or not.
We can talk about what I got, but we might be here for a little while.
Yeah, I'm with Thunders on that one. I kind of.
Yeah, I'll narrow it down. So I did 247 polls,
Uh-huh.
and I got 23 new posters. I got
Jesus.
Regal's gear. I got 4 new skill plates. I got a second hammer plate. I got 13 150% straps. Some really good ones as well, like 250% modern powerhouse,
Wow.
a 150% modern trickster, 150% ruthless aggression trickster for Aussie, and a couple of others that were pretty decent as well. So as much as I did miss with quite a few, like getting one for a couple for PG era and eras that are not really relevant anymore. I got enough that were relevant too. So yeah, I would be surprised if there was many others that got 23 or so posters. But then my time playing the game sort of enables that, and I also thought the puppet prize wall was really quite inventive and nice to see. I didn't get the Abby puppet, unfortunately. Didn't get a drip plate. So there was plenty I didn't get, but yeah, the being able to target stuff well in advance and know what you were getting. I also got Regal's gear as well, which that's absolutely huge when it comes to boss battle. So
Mm-hmm.
all round, my roster changed from being pretty damn good to outstanding, like in one day.
Yeah.
Yeah, it sounds like it. Wow, that's a pretty good haul.
Yeah.
Yeah. Lay it on, Big Show. What'd you walk away with?
Uh, unfortunately, I walked away with another drip.
Oh, you maxed the bitch.
Yeah, and after I was able to shard recruit Howdy, I saw how close I was to that Abby puppet and OTC staring me in the face.
Oh, so you didn't have
I
OTC though?
No.
Okay, well, yeah, that's the allure right there.
So I was just kind of like, yeah, I can't. I mean, I could get him off the UCC, but I was like, you know what? I'm this close. I might as well just get that stupid puppet and go that route and save it for another release. Maybe it's a zero shard release
Mm-hmm.
or Abby, depending on you know where I end up with her this weekend. But
Yep. I mean
got a
the
lot of 150 straps. Actually, a few good ones. All the turtles now strapped at 150.
all of the
Um,
turtles.
yep, and
Wow.
except for Leo.
Okay.
And they got some really shitty ones too. Powerhouse Bree and Rusev are gonna make their return someday, and I'll be ready.
Well,
But
it
no,
sounds. Sorry, go on.
I mean, like overall, the event was great. I mean, you didn't have to. I mean, I know people who just threw $20-$30 and were able to get something new from it.
Yeah. I mean, like we said, right? It's definitely a spend event. We're not taking away from that in the slightest bit. Um, I will say that congrats obviously to Bunders for walking away with almost 24 new posters alone outside of everything else, and him as a newer player. I know that for the longest time, and we've always talked about it, his biggest issue at this point is straps, of having straps to put people, to their top ability. And I think now it's gone away from straps and gone more to coins, TP tokens, shards as resources to leveling these people up. And I'm not saying that that's good. Obviously, no one really wants to have issues with taking people up, but now it's become less of a hindrance of I don't have a strap to be able to use XYZ character. Now it's, I have that availability. Now I just need, resources to take XYZ character up. So huge win for him. I know Big Show, like he just said, did what he did, but hey, when you're walking away with a triple crown, that's never easy. So I gotta definitely commend Big Show on walking away with Howdy, with OTC, with a drip. That to me is the triple crown of that event personally. So huge ups to him. I was almost kicking myself, and I kind of am, right? Like the availability of OTC there. If I didn't get him from the club store, I would have been inclined to go above and beyond in spending to max out that contest to get to that point of getting that puppet in order to get OTC. I definitely would have. I know myself. But because early in the month I decided to get OTC off of the club store, there was no real desire to get up to that point. Don't get me wrong, I definitely got all three of the other puppets. Like I said, I did over 200 pulls. I think I'm closer to Bunders' number. I don't exactly remember the perfect amount of loot coins that I spent, but I definitely spent quite a bit when it came to Black Friday. I did get Uncle Howdy via the Shard Recruit. I did get a bunch of 150 straps and even another gem defense strap because I see a lot of value in those straps. Thankfully, I didn't really have any necessity for any of the posters on the wall like Dusty or Nation of Domination or Sherry or any of that type of stuff. I didn't really have a need for any of the moments such as the Imperium moment or the Tory moment or the Sherry moment. There were, the Tiffy time, what is it, the Tiffy in the bank, Tiffy time is money or whatever that name in that moment is. 4 of those 6 moments to me are available on the month-long midweek prize wall, so they weren't worth it. But the Tiffy time is money and the heartbreaking manager moment, which is the Sherry moment, and that also helps out Bam Bam and Dusty significantly in Feud. I had those from prior spend events from just playing the game. I didn't really have a need to go chasing those down, and with how much those moments were compared to some other items, like we've had at least 2 or 3 people mentioning in the live chat that they picked up Regal's first gear, and having 1 gear on Regal really makes Regal an absolute monster in this game. So having those available is a huge win. All of these things are things that I personally was not really swayed by all that much. My investment really was all of these ultimate straps, and I kind of had a weird touch and go part with it because of how much I had dumped on the Webcoin event for the 130% straps. And that was a lot of commitment and investment there from, doing all the trivia and all that jazz. But a couple of the 130s that I got from the web portal, I ended up getting 150s from this event. So, obviously 150 is better than 130. I don't really think it's that significant of an upgrade, but I will still take it, obviously. And, I'm happy to have, I tell this story all the time in TNM. When I started working up Raphael, when he got his rework, I had a 60% strap for him. The day that he got his rework, I ended up getting 100% strap for him. The day that the Powerhouse thing went live on the web portal event, I got a 130 for him. And Black Friday event, I got not 1 but 2 150s for him. So my Raphael is absolutely, juiced to the moon and back. But this was it was a good event altogether. I just didn't, I committed for Howdy. I got some straps that I really liked the look of. I think that if I didn't have OTC, I would have been convinced to go all the way to maxing the event out and try to pull a drip and get OTC, right? That triple crown type of thing like Big Show got, but because I already had OTC, I couldn't rationalize it. I already had Muda, I already had Fatu, I already had Maxine gear. It wasn't worth going that above and beyond for another Tiffy time plate or the Invis Cena gear, and that's all that puppet would have been for me. Outside of that, the puppet prize walls, they were nice. I didn't really see much value in any of the lower ones personally for me. The very first one was, Stacy, D'Lo, Cross, the Man gear, Corbin gear, and an RK Overload plate. So I don't really think many people got much due out of there. However, the next two were pretty solid for people that didn't have them. The Rabbit prize wall had a glowing Fate plate, which was cool. Powerhouse Hogan, which was cool. And Oozing Machismo Razor Ramon. And the reason that was so impressive to me is on the very next prize wall, the Buzzard one, they also had Razor Ramon gear. So if you didn't have Razor or his gear, you could walk away with both of those items on the way up to the top, as well as Mello being on that wall and, Macho King for people that are chasing him for the Pokemon effect, all that type of stuff. Those walls, I ended up just taking the skill plates because I had pretty much everything else on them. So new skill plates never hurt. But I really enjoyed the fact that there was, honestly, like Big Show said, there was something for just about everyone, even if you did only spend about $20. Again, it's definitely a spender's event. Nothing to take away from that. But man, it felt rewarding for once to do that. And for me, like I said, I was chasing a lot of those straps, and I think I'm pretty thankful that they didn't have deals with guaranteed prize wall in them, because if they did, probably would have ended up spending more money, probably would have ended up maxing out that contest, because that prize wall would mean that there's more shards. But when I got to, I think I was at the second to last milestone, I think it was going to take like another 4 or 5 megas to max that contest out, and I wasn't going to get any prize wall up to that point. And no prize wall means no straps. No straps means no reason. So it kind of hit and miss for me towards the end there and closing out the contest. But again, kind of bittersweet. Wish I had my club coins, but happy that I didn't have to crack open the wallet for 4 more megas. But yeah, a lot to kind of wrap up with that Black Friday contest.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a good contest. I mean, one thing I didn't mention, that probably the biggest game changer actually on my roster was I got a 150% strap for Regal, and I didn't have a strap from before that apart from a legendary 3% move damage. So he went from 0 to 150% gen damage, and yeah, game changing.
Yeah, the bonuses that you can really pick up from not having a damage strap or only having a 40 piece and going all the way up to 150, some of those are just so significant in increases that it's just hard to shy away from. Also, huge congrats to some of the live chat here for, I think AJ's mentioning that both her and the hubby walked away with Sherry and Howdy. No drips in that household, which is unfortunate for that event at least. But congrats on the Razor gear as well. Always very happy when people get to walk away with new things. That much is for sure. Anything else on the Black Friday event? Like I said, I figured that was going to be a long-winded one. I'm sure everyone's sick and tired of hearing me talk at this point.
No, I think we covered it well enough. I mean, it was a pretty decent all-round event for spenders, obviously. Yeah. It's irrelevant to non-spenders, but that is the game sometimes.
Also want to read it here. B-Rock was chiming in. As a leader of a middle tier faction, the spending events that are faction based definitely takes a toll when they're back to back like that. Black Friday was decent, just the positioning of it in the spending cycle, and I can definitely agree with that as well, B Rock. It was it was it was an intriguing event, honestly. I think this month has really been painful on a lot of people. The Rocky, the Turtles, the Black Friday. It's the web portal spend event. It's been a hefty month, and I don't think that's going to be slowing up with December around the corner, with Santa Hogan making a comeback, with the New Year's, all that good stuff, and we'll just have to wait and see in regards to that. But
In a way, though, Bob, I'm thankful for the really, really, really bad portal spend event because it meant that I didn't spend anything that week, and
yes,
I could justify spending on Black Friday.
this is very, very true. It's so funny to me that sometimes they make and I don't want to say such good events, but like the Black Friday again, right, for spenders, it really was a solid event for kickbacks. And then there are just some events that are absolutely so poor and terrible, and they give you zero incentive to want to spend. That it's almost appreciative and thankful that they make some of them just so bad that you're like, I don't want to give them money. So definitely, especially for me, and I'm not speaking on behalf of everybody, but I think I'm speaking on behalf of a few people. We appreciate having just some absolute dog crap events every now and then. It's not the end of the world. All right.
Yeah.
But yeah,
there needs to be a balance, definitely. But yeah, like B-Rock was saying, I mean, we mentioned it on the last podcast, but the constant stream of you need to spend, you need to spend, you need to spend. I mean, that one very much was a choice that I think the faction leaderboard showed that nobody was really interested in spending on that event. So it was a good position in the month to put it because it had been so spend heavy for several weeks in a row. So it was nice.
Yeah. But I think that'll be it for our Black Friday Funhouse contest. Congrats to everyone out there who did walk away with anything new. To anyone that walked away with a new drip plate, damn it, I wish I were you. But that'll be it there. Let's talk about some more MLC related stuff. Almost back to reality, kind of like what we talked about in the beginning of this podcast, how it feels like this MLC has been chopped up into segments. We go back to the Wyatt Six now. The War Games boss battle weekend, where we had to fight Uncle Howdy as the boss himself. Lots of Buzzard related items there. Nothing for Howdy. Nothing for Abby. Plenty for Buzzard. Including, I believe it was a new skill plate on the War Games event. I think that was when his Buzzard's Beak Ultimate skill plate hit, which, for those of you that don't know, is essentially a green version of the Bubba Specs glasses. It is an ultimate plate. Whenever you activate a green move, increase your green gem damage by 50% for one turn. Not really much to go into great detail about here, at least from my perspective. It just kind of felt like another boss battle, didn't it? Or is that just me?
No, absolutely. It was just another boss battle. Really unimaginative prize ball that gave no incentive to chase whatsoever. The plate, outside of being new, isn't really much to write about. It will help a few people, but again, I don't think it takes anybody from being borderline to push them over to turn one, if you know what I mean.
Yes.
So if for those people that want to collect all the plates, then yeah, it's great. You can get another new plate, like you can most weeks, but it is not going to really dramatically affect your roster in any way, shape, or form. So for me, it wasn't worth going after. The prize wall, I ended up just taking shards of two posters that I wasn't going to be able to recruit, but it was going to get me a bit closer. And and I had 40 odd thousand prize wall, so that I think. No doubt you'll come to this, but I think you just ended up taking resources, did you not?
Yeah, I kind of to piggyback on what we were just talking about. I was so overly spent out from everything recently, especially the Black Friday event, the Turtles event, the Rocky event earlier this month, that I just didn't spend. I didn't spend at all on that weekend for the boss. I had Buzzard. I didn't feel a need to spend to try and get Buzzard out of the loot. There was nothing related to Howdy, which, even if there was, thankfully I already had him. There was nothing related to Abby, even shards in the loot, or shard deals, or shards on the prize wall. There was nothing there for me. The only thing that I would have gotten would have been the new plate, like Bunder said, right? Just to kind of collect it, but that plate wasn't worth me spending. I think it was like close to 2 megas to get it, or maybe if you had maxed out the ruby market. I think Zorro told me about that he maxed out the ruby market and only spent like 40 or 60 bucks and got the plate, which power to him. I couldn't see myself spending after all that I had spent to get this plate. That also, to piggyback on what Bunders just said, I don't think it's gonna make anybody tippy top tier who isn't already. It might help out, Buzzard himself. It might help out Dragonov. It might help out Naomi. But these are already top tier characters, right? They don't really need that type of help. And maybe it's a replacement for a Willa Cargill plate for people that use multiply gems, but and again, speaking on personal experience, I already have maybe 3 or 4 of those, so I didn't see a single need to spend, and without spending and looking at that entire wall, I think that's probably one of the first prize walls since I've started this content creator push that I did not do a prize wall evaluation for, just because there was just nothing on there, man. And I know we alluded to this earlier in the podcast here today, that the longer the month goes on, the weaker these prize walls get, which is honestly a letdown. But man, it was pretty straightforward. There was shards. If you didn't have them for characters, then go for it. There was straps that just were absolutely weak to me. There was the skill plate case, which we get, close to a handful of those just by playing the game every single month. But that was it. And yeah, Bunders is spot on. I just caved, and I had about 40,000, just like he said he had. I had about 40,000 prize wall, and I spent all of it on resources. I spent on coins and TP. At the very bottom, what if you've ever watched a prize wall evaluation from me, what I call the cleanup crew items at the very bottom of the prize wall, where you use the remainder of your prize wall to pick all that stuff up, I just spent all 40,000 on coins and TP. I used the cleanup section for my entire event, my entire weekend. It was just, it was poor, and I hate to seem like I'm always so negative about this, but man, that was a real whiff to me. Anything on Boss Big Show?
Yeah, I mean, it was like you guys said, the prize wall was just kind of, especially after the events we had prior to it. It was just kind of, I looked at it and just like you, right to the cleanup crew and just took the resources. There was no need to push for anything, especially with the text that we have, and just getting Shredder at the beginning of the month. I think at the end of last month, it's going to help Mercy. Is it going to put him over the top? Absolutely not.
Yeah, that's my thinking.
And the event itself, it was just boss battle. That was pretty much it.
Yeah, I hate to say it, but boss is really starting to get redundant these days, huh? You just get the one color, you know that it's going to get a 500% gem bonus, and then you just go back to using those same characters that crush that color.
Yeah.
And we
I think
don't.
the problem with boss battle now is that like they used to hold off giving a red boss because KO was too OP in it, but actually he's nowhere near as OP as what some the characters are on several bosses now, like a Jacob or a Julius. They're way more effective than what he was. So there's not much strategy or skill involved in boss battle now. It's just bring your big hitter and kill it in one shot.
It's honestly, it feels like such a letdown to me. Like you just said, that was literally what I was just gonna say too. We don't even get all 6 colors of boss battle anymore. Like we just don't. They don't use red gems. They don't use black gems. They very rarely use yellow gems. And if they do, they try to take away, pyros because they don't want Regal to just reign supreme. Which is funny to me because Regal will just reign supreme in any boss battle. He doesn't need to be yellow. It's just, man, it's just getting so boring. It's a shame because that game mode used to be absolutely fantastic. It used to have people thinking. It used to have people actually getting together with their faction mates of discussing who would benefit from all these bonuses. And it's not that anymore. It's so simplistic in the way that it's done now, and it's upsetting. I really wish that, and again, I don't know that there's a perfect balance because there's so many factions out there that have trouble with boss battle even still to this day. And I don't know if it's, again, I don't know if it's a TNM thing. I don't know if it's an elitist thing. I don't know what you want to call it. But it's just to a point that I don't know that there's a happy medium where everyone can feel like boss battle is fun again. Because if they were to kick it back to what boss battle originally was, there wasn't a color bonus for boss battle. It was all the type gems. It was like, leech gems do 5,000%, silence gems do 8,000%, right? Like, they used to give us massive boss battle boosts, and that is just non-existent nowadays. So I don't know. I really I don't know.
Potentially a happy medium, Bob. I can't remember whether or not we spoke about this on the podcast or just in voice chat, but yourself at Evo, I was there, and I think one other person, I can't remember who it was, said about how the top level boss shouldn't cap out at 1.5 billion health. It should increase. Once you beat 1.5 billion, go to 2 billion. Once you beat 2 billion, go to 3 billion, etc., etc. Keep going until you physically cannot beat it. Like, just for additional rewards. It doesn't even have to be a lot of additional rewards, but it just gives boss battle something to, because like you say, the lower down clans, factions I should say, are not easily beating it, and maybe there is an elitist thing that we beat it in 20 minutes or whatever it is, and that's the end of it outside the CSS. So give an extra stretch milestone to those factions, the top 10 factions, and say, go and beat 100 billion health boss. Let's see how you do it.
It's definitely something that I was talking about in voice chat for sure. And again, I know that it's maybe not the most desired outlook on boss battle because there's already so many people that are struggling with it, but I would like to see a change to boss battle. I like the idea of everything still, you still have the skulls and you keep your structure of the event right now. There's no need to change everything like that. I'm not trying to make a huge world change or anything like that, but adding a secondary event to it where you have players that can sort of link up together and try to push themselves above and beyond, I really think would be fun. If you had a 2 billion health, you know, a 5 billion health, a 10 billion health, a 1 trillion health boss, something like that that really makes your absolute best of the best players get together, strategize, bring in their boss breakers. They have to go to, you know, round 14 or something. They have to have their unfreeze. They have to have their shield breakers. They have to have their healers. They need to have something that can force them to actually push up against some actual true boss, right? When you're talking about bosses in games, they're supposed to be difficult. They're supposed to be hard. It's supposed to be the end game, right? Like, that's what a boss is. It's the end of the level. It's the end of the game. It's something that's a challenge. And boss battle these days is no longer a challenge. The challenge of boss battle is getting everybody to show up. That doesn't even have anything to do with the game. It's just getting people to log in. And that's a crazy concept. Like, boss used to be who's the best, who's the strongest, who's the quickest, how many people have these characters that are the best, the strongest, the quickest, etc. Like, that just doesn't exist anymore. And, you know, I really wish there were changes to making boss more difficult in terms of the people that want it to be more difficult. I don't want every single player in the game or every single player in a 100-person faction to have to fight the 1 trillion health boss. But if there's a group of, you know, 4, 8, 20 people that are like, you know, hey, we're going to go above and beyond. We're going to be the boss crew for this faction once our skulls are done. And we're going to try and climb to level 30, level 50, level 75, level 100 on boss, where it just gets to be absolutely crazy. Then yeah, that to me is where there could be a lot of fun. That you can have a group of players from a faction, or even if you want to do universal, like global lobbies, like they have at, I think it's 15 and below now, or 8 and below, whatever it is. You could have global lobbies with some players out there from other factions, just to see if you can group up together and beat the true boss of the game. The real Omega boss, the end game is what you're looking for. I think that could make it more enjoyable. And you can put a secondary contest where, you know, if you're in the faction of the people that push that high up, great, you know, you get some extra reward, you know, whatever it is, whether it's resources or shards, whatever, right? And if you're part of the 4-man team that does, you know, take down the level 100 boss, and, you know, you take down the 1 trillion health, like, then yeah, sure, you know, you get an extra reward or something, but make boss something you cannot beat. Make something that, like, your best of the best of the best in the entire game, your top tier players are going to struggle. Make something that truly is engaging in that regard. And not everybody needs to play it, and it's fine, but make it available for the people that want to.
Yeah, like you said, it would be extra. It wouldn't be part of the contest. It wouldn't be, you know, people are missing out on it. It's either you give it a shot and you go for it, or you don't. But it would make boss feel like something again.
Yeah. Because this time around, man, we showed up for boss. I had people that logged in, and I think I carried like 6 people through because they wanted to get their 4 styles done, and they had stuff to get back to, and you know, I had what's his face, Fuzzy Ozzy maxed out, got a new 100%er for him, have the nearing end plate for him, and he was just strong enough to, you know, wipe out the boss. And that took all of a grand whopping total of about 15 minutes, 10 minutes, something like that, for me to carry 6 people through all of their styles. And that was kind of it. And once that was done, then we all just move on to CSS. But like, that's it's not an engaging way of getting people to play. You know, it's 10 minutes is essentially one feud battle. Like, you queue up for feud, it takes you about 10 minutes to wait for the loading screens, to get into feud, to get out of feud, to beat all of your opponents, all that type of stuff. And maybe, you could squeeze 2 feuds in, sure, but like, that's all that it is. That's all you're really doing for Boss is 1, maybe 2 feud battles. That's it. And then your weekend is over. Like, it's just it's kind of boring these days. I really wish it was more engaging. But yeah, we all knew, man. Red Boss shows up, you break out Fuzzy Ozzy or break out Jacob Fatu, or that's it. But what are you gonna do? Here's hoping that. And look, I know that a lot of people are probably gonna hate me for saying this, but I really look forward to the days that they get rid of color gem bonuses on Boss, and they bring back what we once used to have, which was crazy bonuses like 5,000% leech gem, 8,000% silence gem. No longer this like 500, 700. No, give me thousands. Give me big boy gem damage bonuses on these things, or even a move damage bonus or sub bonus that is significant. Give me a 3,000 percent move damage bonus. Give me a 4,000%, 5,000% submission damage bonus. Like, give me something that makes Boss feel different. Because right now it's just boring. And it doesn't help, honestly. And I'm not trying to pile onto it because I know it's pretty eh. But I'm hopeful that something changes with it in the future. It just doesn't help when the prize wall attached to the entire event. It's just so bad. But anything else on our prospective boss or boss changes or anything like that before we move forward to our final point of the event?
No.
No, not for me.
B-Rock's commenting here. You're thinking that some of you are operating from the penthouse. The regular people still don't have 70 people who have the OP champ needed. The boss you're talking about, Jacob, was the OP champ. Him at 6-star gold with the plate was rare, or him with the gear was rare. For sure. And again, I agree with you, B-Rock, and that's part of the issue here is that there's no even playing field for everybody. That's the issue with Boss. I think still to this day that there still is not 20 factions that max out Boss. That's I think the issue. I think a lot of those top end characters are just that. They're top end. They're for the players that go above and beyond in playing and spending and grinding out things as, a top 5, even, maybe if you're pushing it to top 10 faction, but I don't think outside of the top 20, I don't even think 20 factions max out Boss. And so it's a tough game mode to gauge because a lot of the players at the top are so over it and so bored with it, and a lot of the players who are not at the very tippy top are still sitting here and curious and wondering how they can force their way to just clearing skulls. Not forget doing it first, just getting through it. I know there's factions in the top 30 who don't even worry about 23s. They just all do 22s because they don't have 6-star golds across the board. There's a lot of issues with Boss, honestly. It's not competitive enough in terms of trying to figure it out for the very top end. It's too competitive for most of the mid end, and it's just undoable for the majority of the low end. It's a very tough spot where that game mode is in right now. And again, it's not rewarding enough for people to feel the need to go above and beyond. Like you mentioned, Jacob, it's not rewarding enough for people to feel to go above and beyond enough to spending money on Jacob, spending money on his gear, and doing all these things that they normally wouldn't do in their gameplay to get the character for the one time that he's required for the boss because it's the color bonus that he has. So it's a tough position that game mode is in. Honestly, it is. But I think that'll be it for our boss talks there, unless either of you guys have anything else to comment on. AJ's talking that they could possibly implement leagues for factions so that different factions can compete, for boss against each other, and that might not be such a horrible idea. Um, just to have a separator of factions in that regard, kind of like you can get promoted or relegated from the top tier or the bottom tier or things like that, to compete against other factions. That way, there's a chance to climb back up to the top in the league that you're in, instead of always feeling like you're just always behind when you're getting put up against some of the toughest people that you have no chance at competing against. And that's not fun either, to go into an event knowing that there's just no chance. But I think that'll be it for our boss talks. Last but certainly not least, we have the Feud Salvation weekend. This weekend is very intriguing to me. There are two 18-hour feuds. There is no faction event whatsoever. The new CSS structure in regards to the specific characters feeding the solo event, about 50,000 points or 100,000 if you have the fancy character for either respective feud. And the 150 gem damage straps make a return yet again as a potential drop item in this contest. Very shocked personally that they made a return so quickly. And also revamped rewards for the war score finishes for factions as a total. The bronze, silver, and gold champion chests that have shards of A tier characters, gears of A tier characters, gears of S tier characters, and shards of them. Shards of some S plus tier characters and some skill plates at the very top. Very different take on Feud weekend that we're currently experiencing. And obviously, it is indeed Abby the Witch's shard debut, which, to circle back on what we were talking about at the beginning of the podcast, that there are definitely some people who will most likely get some additional milestones in the Super Shard contest, or possibly max out the Super Shard contest with the Abby shards. Very curious to hear your guys' thoughts on pretty much all of it. There's a lot going on this weekend. Outside of the Black Friday event, I think this will probably be what gets the majority of the feature on the podcast here.
Yeah, so this is something that we spoke about quite a bit before we came onto the podcast, and I've not done two 18-hour feuds before. It's my first experience of that, and I was a little bit apprehensive of what that would mean and how that would fit into my weekend without completely taking over my whole weekend. And actually, I'm pleasantly surprised. Hasn't been too bad so far. I really like the way that they've done the CSS, in terms of specific characters being on the minimal side and putting in each class or era like to build your war score. And I think the rewards are pretty good as well. So I know we're only not even halfway through the weekend as a whole, but yeah, I quite like it. I quite like it as the way they've set it up. And I think, like, just going back to boss, and we were talking about it's boring for us, but and easy for us, but not so easy for others. I think that's where we maybe fall down on this podcast, because there's a lot of us from the same high-end factions, and there isn't enough opinions from people lower down to counter that. But I think that this kind of event and that kind of setup enables every faction to at least have a go and get decent amount of points. So I think it's a good setup.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you there. Again, to those of you that are listening to this on YouTube after the live recording, if you are from another faction and want to get in on this, definitely feel free to message me on Discord, and be glad to pull up a chair for you at the next roundtable for sure. I do think that it would help having different perspectives, big time. Big Show, thoughts on the Feud Salvation?
It's different. The new chests, they seem interesting for the factions that are the upper end ones that are going to get the gold chests or possibly silver. I think they could have brought down the purple chest a little further outside of the top 20. So it wasn't just strap parts and some gold tokens, which we can get everywhere. The not having the faction contest is different. Feels kind of weird. I know some players look for those faction points at the end of the event to maybe snipe another milestone or not in the solo contest.
Yeah.
The 2 18-hour feuds, it is what it is. Either, you could feud as much as you want, as little as you want, or whatever you want. You basically got to have 2 days to do it. To see it, like, not really having any restrictions on the CSS is nice. Having the whole 2 feuds to get it all done is nice because, like you said earlier, having to use some of the females for these requirements wouldn't be fun.
Yeah, the era requirements with these females, and again, I know that some people did it, but it does not feel like it's going to be very fun to use, Molly Holly or Alundra Blaze for some of these requirements. It's definitely doable because I've seen people that maxed out all their CSS right now, but I am definitely not going through that process.
No, I'm not. I'm with you on that one. I'm not going to put myself through that kind of torture.
No, I'm just kicking back.
Me three. I've avoided that too. I'll save that for men.
Yeah, I was very interested in hearing your thoughts on this one, Big Show, because I know you're a big feud guy. I'm sure a lot of people here probably also know that I was a big competitive feud guy too, but that's kind of that's a me thing when there's something on the line that's worth pushing for. There really doesn't feel like there's something that is worth breaking my back over. Kind of what we were talking about prior to the podcast going live, we were just having a tiny chat about it, is if you have these CSS, the specific ones, it's about 50,000 points towards the solo contest, which is essentially 7 loot coins, which is more or less $20. And don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that $20 is a drop in the bucket because it's still money. But a lot of these other contests, you can't make up those points any other way. If you just don't have the CSS, you just don't have them. You're kind of locked out of them. So the idea that you can make it up for, a $20 spend if you don't have some of these, Omega super walled off CSS, like if you don't have Maxine right now, or you don't have Tori, or you don't have Roxanne, which aren't the most like commonplace CSS, then yeah, it's really it's to me it's appreciative that they actually do have a way to get it, to have a way to get those points and work around it. Like the next one that we're gonna have, the male feud, there's 3 S+ tier males that are CSS. It's Ilya, it's the new solo Sokoa Showboat, and Uncle Howdy. Like, that's gonna not be the easiest CSS for everybody to walk across, but $20 to make it up really doesn't feel like it's that much. On top of that, 50,000 points really isn't going to make or break you in this 10 million point contest. So I'm appreciative that those CSS, while they're there, it's not the end of the world that they're there. I enjoy this new contest. This feud contest that isn't a faction contest. It is definitely weird. It is definitely odd not having a faction contest, not being able to talent people up with, starfills or levels or TP or whatever. I get all that. I'm almost thankful that it is a solo contest so that I can decide what it is that I want to do on the weekend without it impacting other folks in my faction. The one thing they did, which is faction based, is they got us those champion chests to change. Those are actual faction rewards now, right? That's what has the skill plates, that's what has the shards for the S+ tier characters. in the super, top 2 gold chests, right? The silver chests that go down, I think, to rank 7, which is a weird number, has those S plus tier characters, gears, which is nice if you're in a faction that can get those. And I'm in full agreement with Big Show. I think that the gold should have come down to podium. It should have been top 3, not top 2, because to be fair with you, those gold chests are really not that impressive. The silver ones, I think, is what everyone wants to get. I think those should have come down to a minimum of top 10. And the bronze, I definitely don't think should have been limited at top 20. There's nothing really in there that is so astronomically wonderful and great that they needed to wall it off to top 20. That could have been a top 50 thing or even top 100 thing.
I would have said top 100 thing.
Yeah.
To make it feel like just for those factions to feel like they're playing for something.
Right. There's something possible, right? Because, and let's be honest, what is Batista Bomb's gear going to really do for you? It's not. And don't get me wrong, I love Batista Bomb. I use them all the time. I'm sure that a lot of you that are listening to this on YouTube have seen my content on Batista Bomb by now. I know a lot of people in my faction are sick of hearing me talk about him at this point. But, like, his gear doesn't help him even one bit. Tongaloa gear doesn't really help him become, competitively viable. Like, it's just there. What does it really matter? What is the harm in making that available? I just don't see it. So I think that could have been stretched a lot further than top 20. Or if you guys are really trying to, like, make this a thing where everyone's supposed to be grinding for it, then the rewards inside just need to be better. That's just the end all be all. So, like, I'm appreciative that they changed it up. I'm thankful that they're trying to make an incentive for people to go above and beyond with feuding. But if this is the only change for the faction concept, I don't think this is enough to get players to go above and beyond to chasing every single, war score point possible. I mean, this entire podcast and this entire recording, I've essentially just been using one character to flatten people. I'm sure I'm picking up, points, and here, I'll even check where I'm at in the faction. I'm 25th now after just hanging around and clicking this one button, right? Like, that's all I've been doing, all feud. And so I'll make a video later on when the podcast is done, and I'll showcase all the females that I want to use and how I would go about using them and all that jazz. But this feud has literally just been a coast for me. I'm just hanging around. I'm kicking back this feud, picking up enough war score this time around that it's going to be CSS for me on the male feud. And if I really want to go above and beyond and just consistently clicking a couple of buttons, sure, I will, and I'll get some solo points. But that's all up for me to decide. That has nothing to do with anybody else in my faction. But the thing that I love about this change, on top of the fact that it's not a faction contest, I love the fact that these CSS, and again, if you're watching this on YouTube, you'll see me changing the screen right now instead of just Bailey slamming everybody. I enjoy the fact that these CSS are just open. Everyone should have someone in each class. Everyone should be able to have, and maybe not the best, but everyone should be able to have a character in each era that's listed. There's no PG and no modern, sure, right? PG's not great. It's arguably the worst, and modern's obviously the best. But, like, you guys should all have someone in each of these eras that you should be able to win with. And just by doing these CSS alone, it's 320 million points or something like that. It gets you all the way through this gold chest, which gets you another 1,000 Abbey shards. It gets you, I think it's either 3 or 6. I'm forgetting where the final straps are. But let's just say bare minimum 3 additional straps that can possibly range up to 150% gem damage. Like, it's a win to me. I don't like the 18-hour feud. That's a me thing personally, because I used to feud pretty heavily, and when I used to feud, I would feud every single hour of every single feud. But I'm not competing like that anymore, so it doesn't really bother me as much. I don't have the urge to feud every single feud for 18 hours straight. I'm not chasing those leaderboards. I'm not losing anything out by not chasing those leaderboards. I'm just using one character this whole time. And I'll get my CSS. It won't be that big of an issue to me. The solo CSS are fine. Feeds the solo event. The classes and eras, everyone's got them, so no one's really held back. I enjoy the fact that everybody's on an even playing field there. So I initially was not a huge fan of the 18 hours. I still kind of am not a fan of it because it's 36 hours on a weekend of feud compared to a typical 20-hour feud weekend is 20 hours, or Flash feud is 24 hours. This jumps all the way up to 36. But you know what, man? If those 12 hours over Friday to Saturday and Saturday to Sunday nighttime is good enough to help people feud, then so be it. By all means, let them feud during that time. I don't like it because, and I don't want to speak on Big Show's behalf because he's his own man, especially and like he's on the table today. But I used to be in his shoes where I would just be grinding feud. I don't like the idea that if he wants to grind feud to get a good enough solo score, that now he has to do an 18-hour grind back-to-back days. That's just not enjoyable. It's not an enjoyable experience. But it seems like it's I don't know. It seems like a pretty decent change, honestly. I was definitely very heavily against it in the beginning, but I kind of dig the changes. I kind of do. And I mean, Big Show, obviously, like I said, you're more than free to elaborate if you like it or if you hate it. I don't want to speak on your behalf.
18 hours I'm not a fan of. I went probably 98% of this one. I think I took an hour nap this morning. As for the next one, no, I'm not. Maybe I'll play maybe half, but I don't need to. I just CSS and I can put the game down for the weekend.
Yeah.
Instead of doing the one solo contest for both feuds, maybe they could have broken it up into two. Just to make it so you didn't have to play for those that are going to grind the full 36 hours.
Yeah. I can see that.
I mean, because that's a lot. I know for me personally, after about 36 hours, I'm a zombie.
Of course.
And I think you were saying on Twitch the other day, it's essentially Flash feuds without the break in between.
That's exactly what it is.
So, like you said, instead of getting the 8 hours, then the 6 to sleep, 4 hour, you get 18 hours and you get 6 hours of rest, and then you're back at it again. I mean, it's a lot.
Yeah.
I guess the worst thing as well is it's 18 hours and then it finishes at reset, so you need to do your stuff at reset before you then go and try and get some sleep before the next one starts. So it's
try to get something to sleep, try to get something to eat, try to
It's just
it's a lot. I mean, if they cut it down maybe 2 12 hours instead of the 2 18s, would have been better.
Yeah. I think a 2 12-hour feud probably would have been better for a lot of folks. I think it gives everyone around the world, that half-day cycle that they can get in the points that they need. But having this 18-hour straight thing with no 6-hour break in between, it's tough. And I honestly, I think that this 18-hour thing is because a lot of people feel like this appeases them across the globe, where this helps out the European players. And I'm not trying to talk bad to them at all. But I feel like this, what used to be a 6-hour gap being 6 hours of incessant feud, it kills the drive for leaderboards.
Yeah.
And so I get it. A lot of people are like, screw the leaderboards. I'm not a leaderboard chaser. I hate the leaderboards. I'll never be up there. And, I respect that. For the past, what is it? We're in December now. For the past 7 months, over half a year, I haven't chased leaderboards. So I get where some of those players are coming from, that, there's no desire to chase leaderboards, but that doesn't mean that the leaderboard chasers should get screwed because I'm not chasing them. Like, there's a couple things that keeps games alive. Obviously, number one is money. Number two is playing the game, is activity, logged in on the game and actually playing the game. And to have that world where there's, only spending and then just shitting on the leaderboards, that doesn't help keep the game alive. When you take away the desire that people have for playing the game, that's just not, it's not a good tactic. So
I think from Scopely's point of view, I can understand they're trying to make sure that everybody has got a feud window in every time zone, sort of thing, and I get that it is a worldwide game, but there does need to be a happy medium. And that's why I agree with Big Show on the 12 hours. I think that would have been ideal, because 12 hours of feuding is excessive, but for a lot of people, but for those that really want to push the leaderboards, 12 hours is manageable. And it will cross every time zone, so everybody is going to get a feud window.
I mean, I guess the real question too here, and I'm curious, and Bunders, please feel free to chime in too. I'm curious from you too, Big Show, if it were 12-hour feuds, when would it have to start and end for it to make sense to you? And obviously, I know this is going to be like a biased question because of where you live, but what time do you think it should start and end?
Time doesn't matter to me so much. I mean, they could have done, for me, like midnight to noon, being on the East Coast.
Okay.
But I think a lot of it's more our overseas group that feel like they get hurt or they lose out on a lot when it comes to Flash, or just not having that window. I'm sure Bunders can add in. I think he's 6 hours ahead of us. Maybe.
Yeah, 5. So, like this particular feud will start at 2 a.m. for me and goes until 8 p.m. the next day. So, or the same day technically, but like most people go to bed after that. So, it's Black Feud can be really difficult. Like for me personally, there is a particular Black Feud 3, that starts at 2 a.m. and finishes at 8 a.m. So unless you're prepared to stay up crazy late or get up stupidly early, you literally cannot get a feud in, and that makes things difficult. And the one thing that this 18-hour does is provide a window for everybody. Like I was saying previously, that everybody will be able to say at some point, if they want to feud for, let's say, 2 hours to get their CSS done, that they could pick out 2 hours for each feud in this 36 hours that they would be able to feud solid for and get their CSS done. And that's a positive thing, but it's over the top for those people that want to feud for that whole time. Now, Scopely will say that's a choice, and it's always a choice. It's a choice to play the game.
Of course, it's a choice to play the game, choice to spend.
Yeah, but that's where I mean, it needs to be a happy medium. Now, I think the US is going to have the majority of the players, probably over 60%, I would suggest. I don't know the figures though. So times need to suit the US, but even that is, you've got Pacific time over to Eastern time, still a 3-hour time difference there. So I like the fact that they started at reset. and went for 12. If they started at reset and went for 12 hours, which would be 12 Pacific, so noon to midnight Pacific, I think that is a fair time for everybody.
So you're thinking reset time.
Yeah, if they started at what is effectively 8 p.m. my time and went through to 8 a.m., then and nearly everybody's on at reset. So it gives you a chance to play the game for as long as you need to then, and you can play it late into the evening or get up early.
So
In my area, but someone like yourself, Bob, on Eastern time, you would be going from 3 in the afternoon till 3 in the morning. So actually, that's a pretty good window. You know, you would if people at work until 5 or whatever, then they can come home, they can play till midnight, and that's still a large chunk of that 12 hours.
yeah. So okay. So I like the idea of reset being the start instead of it just being some random time at night for Eastern. Because yeah, 5 hours ahead, like you said, for you is a 2 a.m. start, or for Zoro, for example, it's a 4 a.m. start, right? Like some people get the start just in the absolute worst time zones. Um, but okay, let's go from there for reset for now. Okay, let's take this concept of what we're doing right now, which is the feud salvation, instead of it just being the one feud. Let's say we had two feuds as the norm moving forward. Instead of the typical 20-hour feud, which is what we have from 7 p.m. Eastern to 3 p.m. Eastern, which is Saturday to Sunday. Let's take that out of it. Let's say the norm moving forward is these two 12-hour feuds. Do you think it makes sense for it to be reset to reset, Friday to Saturday? Sorry, reset to 12 hours past on Friday and reset to 12 hours past on Saturday? Or does it make sense Saturday reset, feud starts, it goes for 12 hours, and then immediately after that 12 hours is done, you have the second feud for 12 hours? Or is that too much? Because to me, that feels like it's the typical 20-hour feud, but instead it goes to 24 hours, and we have two feuds during that time. I'm curious what you guys think about that.
I think the only problem with that is that you're asking the leaderboard guys, the guys that are playing the whole time, to go 24 hours straight. And I think it's an unreasonable ask of the game. And I know that they'll say, well, they don't have to do that, but they do. So it's I think having the gap in between, from my point of view, looking at a fairness across the board, I think that's a better way to do things. But Big Show might feel different. He might feel like once you're in a groove, you want to stay on.
Yeah, I mean, when you're going for boards, you do find that groove, and you don't want to put it down. You want to just keep cruising.
So, okay. So, Big Show, do you think that you would lose you if we did, let's say, Friday reset? Let's just use 3 p.m. 3 p.m. to 3 a.m. is Friday, and then 3 p.m. to 3 a.m. Saturday. Would you rather have that, or would you rather have 3 p.m. to 3 p.m. Saturday to Sunday?
I'd prefer just the one day.
You prefer just the one straight day. You have your two back-to-back 12-hour feuds.
Yeah, I know what my body can handle with lack of sleep. Having 2 days is a lot.
Yeah.
For most. I mean, I know it's a choice, but I mean that's a lot to do.
I'm just curious.
And
right?
there's still a handful of people that like to chase those boards.
For sure. And that's my thinking. Like, it's, and I think Sensei also brings up a good point here that there still has to be time to build in a feud roster. So I get it that you'd only have time to build in the first feud roster, and the second one might not be perfect timing after. So let's just, for argument's sake, let's make the second feud 11 hours instead of 12 hours in the scenario of doing that whole 24-hour theme. But let's say feud number one is female. It's 12 hours. It goes from 3 p.m. Eastern, which is reset for me, till 3 a.m. Eastern. From 3 a.m. Eastern to 4 a.m. Eastern is your feud prep for the male feud, and 4 a.m. to reset, which is 3 p.m., is your male feud. And you just run that straight 24 hours from Saturday to Sunday, and once 3 p.m. Sunday comes around, you're done with the feud. I think that there's a potential there for it to be either one, and I think that either of those scenarios arguably is better than these two 18-hour feuds.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I think that it would work out. I think more people would prefer that across the board.
Yeah, I think that there's room for some improvement still, but I gotta say I am still a fan of this feud Salvation weekend. I do appreciate it. AJ's chiming in. Why is one feud not enough outside of Flash feud? It's not that it isn't, AJ. It's just a thought. It's just a thought process.
Actually, Bob, I really like the fact that they're doing a female and a male feud, because I think that we need more female content in the game. I've mentioned it previously. The fact that there are so many good female cards now, or posters, or whatever you want to call them, you want to be able to use them, and so it makes sense that we have more female content. Or I've also said, just allow any poster against any poster. It's not like it's real life. We're not putting tiny little women against massive men. It's a game. So if Maxine beats the shit out of Big Show, that's not going to happen in real life. But actually, in the game, it's the game.
Yeah, I mean, look, I'm not going to argue that, and especially at this point in the game, our females are thankfully strong enough that they can compete against the males. Some of them are arguably even stronger than the males in the game. I think in the very beginning that just would have been absolutely unfair because of how bad the female characters were. I think Striker Ronda and Showboat Charlotte, before she had gears or skill plates or anything, or a rework, I think those were the best two. So I could see that being a change up. And again, right, just to kind of piggyback on this whole thing, I don't think there's a need for it, but I do like the idea of trying to implement more content for both sides of the game. I think it feels it's very punishing for some players when they spend, an entire talent up on, let's say, their female roster, and then there's no female events that entire month. And you're like, why? Why did I do this? Like, it feels bad. So I do think that there should, personally, I think that there should be a more inclusive side of the game. And I think that that's an opportunity for it to happen. Again, it's not a necessity. I'm not saying it needs to be a thing, but I do enjoy the idea of there being two feuds that are limited to 12 hours apiece. I don't like the idea of it just being a straight 20-hour feud. I don't like this idea of the two 18-hour feuds back to back. That just feels like the 20-hour feud times two on the entire weekend. And the 20-hour feud is already enough for a lot of players out there that, want to chase their stuff. So just some food for thought, right? And again, none of this is obviously going to be forced or implemented into the game, right? I don't even know if the devs listen to this podcast, but it's just some fun talks while we're discussing stuff for Feud. But
I think that's the CSS thing for this. That's like helps mix it up a bit as well, because generally you'll see people go into a 20-hour feud. They'll have the CSS lineup they're going to do, and then as soon as that's done, they're going to go into their normal lineup that they'll stick with for the whole of the rest of the 19 hours or whatever they've got left of the feud.
Mm-hmm.
And it won't change. Whereas having the different eras, the different classes, and that sort of thing that you've got to use, I've seen quite a lot of changing lineups. Changed my lineup quite a few times myself, so it makes you think about Feud a little bit more as well. So I do like that a lot.
Yeah, it's there's a lot of potential with this. I think the only thing that I don't like is how many hours it is. Everything else I enjoy. I enjoy the CSS change. I think the prize wall is just fine, which we'll probably get into on the next podcast. Not really much to go into great detail in regard to like the Sunday Blitz or anything like that, but I mean, this is it's seeming like a pretty decent weekend, to be honest. And for those of you that have been watching on YouTube, you've pretty much watched me Bailey bomb everything for the past like 2 hours straight, so you can tell that I'm not really like going above and beyond for any of this stuff, but I'm still making progress. I think I've got enough points that all I need to do is the CSS for the male feud. Yeah, I just checked them at 342 million points, and I still have about 200 million in CSS that I can earn from classes and eras. So, and there's still another 2+ hours to go in this feud. So, I mean, it is what it is. I think it's an interesting change, to put it kindly. Definitely think it's an interesting change. And I'm looking forward to seeing how our feuds kind of develop moving forward. I was not privy enough to be on the most recent call that they had with their players and devs and all that, but my understanding from it is that there's a lot of talks about changing up leaderboards and trying to make the game more engaging to get people to want to play the game more. So I'm hopeful that we can see some changes for the positive moving forward. If neither of you have anything else to say, I think that's where we're going to wrap up this podcast, which I know the roundtable wasn't very large today, as we've alluded to numerous times, and you know, most people are definitely spending their time feuding right now still. But yeah, I mean, and I'm sure, again, for those of you that are watching on YouTube, you've probably seen me queue up with Big Show close to a handful of times. I think we're in one right now.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, that'll be it for this one. That is volume number 6 of the Roundtable Podcast. Huge thank you to Bunders for showing up again on short notice. Appreciate it. And Big Show, massive thank you for showing up for your first table. Appreciate you at the, pretty much the last minute showing up here. That's very thankful. And if you enjoyed the format, definitely would love to have you back on. Really, really appreciated your insight on a lot of the feud related stuff. I think it definitely helps. And again, for those of you that are listening at home in the comfort of wherever it is that you're listening to this YouTube podcast, make sure to send me a message if you would like to be on a future podcast for yourself. Would definitely love to get some more non-TNM membership and representation in on the podcast moving forward. I think that, and again, it's not trying to be or sound elitist. I just think the true ignorance of what a full TNM podcast brings to the table kind of shines through, especially when we were talking about something like Boss. So I'd like to be able to have a wealth of the player base kind of joining in regards to the podcast instead of it just being TNM members. So if you don't know how to reach me, my Discord is very simply 2bob29. Definitely reach out. My friend messages, requests, things, whatever those are open. So you can definitely shoot me a message and let me know if you want to chime in. Yes, as B-Rock mentioned in the chat, I was gonna have B-Rock on today, and then we got the podcast started, so I couldn't reset up his settings and all that once everything was going. But in the famous words of B-Rock, don't oversleep. But that's going to be it for this one. I appreciate you all for listening. Huge shout out once again to Butters and Big Show for showing up. And I will see you all in 2 weeks' time for the next iteration of the Round Table Podcast. And fair warning to those of you who are listening to this now, the following podcast on the 4th of January, I'm going to have that one kind of in the air. I'm not really sure that we're going to be able to host that. I may be doing some family things. I might be done with some family things. So make sure to tune in to next podcast where I will be able to give you an update in regards to if we're going to be having one then or not. But until then, have a good one, everybody.